Good day everyone, welcome back to another clean cut EDC video. Today we are taking a look at another Spyderco knife. And this thing is a monster. This thing is an absolute monster. We're doing an unboxing and an overview video. And then after I've had the opportunity to actually test it and use it for myself, I will come back to you guys with a review on this guy. But for today, let's just talk about this knife. It is a monster of a Spyderco knife. So in the comment section, let me know what knife do you think is in this box before I open this up, and let's see if you were correct. So let's go. What will it be? Spyderco Manix XL. Man, this thing is a monster, an absolute monster of a knife. Look at this. Whoa. So just to put it into perspective, right, most people or most Spyderco fans, they prefer the Para 3 as an EDC, right? Because it's a good pocket size pocket knife. Look at that, right? Now, love that. Yeah, now this thing is a lot bigger than that preferred size. Some people that really like big knives and like the full size knife as their EDC prefer the PM2. So look at this, guys. It is crazy. So this is just to give you guys a perspective, right? For a lot of people, the PM2 is a little bit too big. So the Manix XL is about 3 centimeters longer than the PM2. So that's just to give you guys an idea of what we're dealing with here. This thing is huge. Compared to the Delica, man, oh man, you can basically fit another Delica blade in there before you reach the length of the Manix XL. So guys, the Manix XL, what a machine. I have held the regular Manix or the Manix 2, and that thing is built to last, right? Super durable, probably one of the most durable knives from Spyderco, I would say. And yeah, I think then Spyderco was just like, okay, let's just build a tank version of this, an absolute war monster, and see what we get. And they came up with the Manix XL, and just this thing is an absolute war tank of a knife. Of course, the weight and the measurements, the exact measurements, we will do during the review. But I can tell you guys, this is not a pocket-friendly knife. It is not a basic EDC knife. Let's run this knife through and see what we got, right? So with this blade shape, we've got the standard sort of a spear point leaf blade shape, as opposed to the blade shape of, let's say, the Delica, or the Para 3. You've got that very leaf blade shape there, right there. And a lot of people dislike this blade shape. They don't like the pelican style looking knives, right? Or blade. It's just not something that's pleasing to them. I don't mind it that much, but I have to agree that this blade shape is probably a little bit more easy on the eyes, in my opinion. However, this blade shape is super duper functional. It is such a functional blade shape. I'm not taking anything away from that. I'm just talking about looks, right? With this, you've got a lot better piercing ability than on this type of blade shape. However, with the spear point leaf blade shape, I think you do have a little bit better tip strength than on something like the PM2, right? Which has a super fine tip, not really reinforced, tapers down to a super fine tip there. A highly functional tip, but just not the strongest in the world. Yeah, so the Shaman, the Manix, the Tenacious, the Native, the Sage, they all have very pleasing blade shapes, in my opinion. Yet not as functional tip-wise, right, or piercing-wise. Okay, the action on this guy is phenomenal. It's really good. It's super solid. Very, very nice action there. Now, this is quite a chunky piece of S30V, CPM S30V blade steel. It's the same size as, I believe, the PM2. Let's see there. Yes. So I think the PM2 is about 3.5 millimeters. So this is quite a chunky piece of S30V. Good geometry on the blade, nice and thin behind the edge. Not quite as thin as something like the Para 3 behind the edge, or even the PM2, but nice and thin nonetheless. Very, very slicey. Good for food prep, good for carving, basically any cutting task it will be pretty useful for. Such a versatile blade shape in a sense. So yeah, we've got the standard funnel from Spyderco, and made in Golden, Colorado, USA. Yes, nice. All right, so let's talk about the jimping, because this is what sets this knife apart, in my opinion, and sort of gives it its own identity. So we've got the standard Spyderco, highly functional, highly grippy, jimping on the thumb ramp here. Same as what we see on something like the Delica. Very, very, very fine jimping, but super, super grippy. We've got jimping on the blade side of the choil, but here we also now have jimping on the liners. The liners are flush with the scales, unlike with something like the Delica where it's inset, or the PICKLED or PM2 where it's inset. So yes, they actually were able to add some jimping on the liners itself, which is super unique. I don't see that on a lot of knives, right? So we've got full traction within the finger choil. You've got full traction here in the resting place for your index finger on the scales. Very nice. Very, very nice jimping. Now here is where it sets itself apart. Look at that. And look at this. That is spiky. Spiky, spiky jimping. Which makes me think that this was not intended as an EDC knife. Other than the massive size, this was not intended as your basic EDC knife. I believe that this was created more for military or security personnel, even police. Possibly people that wear gloves on the job, right? It's a lot more tactical than the other Spyderco knives. It locks your hand into place very nicely, especially with how the scale is curved. Now added with this jimping here, it's just, you're not going to pull this knife out of someone's hands, right? It's just not going to happen. You're locked in either way, stabbing, you know, you're not going to slide forward. It's a very tactical design. Super, super comfortable when wearing gloves. However, on the bare hand, now I'm not a pussy, but man, this thing is a little bit tough on your hands. Those are like spikes, basically. So it's not going to be comfortable, right? For extended use, for cutting something for like 10 minutes, it's going to be okay. But after that, I think, I'm predicting, I don't know yet, I will test it, but I'm predicting that's going to be uncomfortable. However, I think with gloves, yes, you're just going to have a grip like nothing else on this knife. Such a good purchase. So yeah, very full-size grip, full-size knife. Nothing is uncomfortable, especially with my hand. My hand fits this knife perfectly, right? Whereas maybe someone with smaller hands, they're going to run on this little tab here, and it's going to be uncomfortable. But for a large hand, the Manix XL, it fits it perfectly, for sure. Right, we've got some good hardware. I believe that is T8 and T10 on the pivot. And then we've got a standard T6 on the pocket clip. Now the pocket clips from Spyderco, they are good as high ride pocket clips. The standard pocket clips are good for high ride pocket clips. With this particular knife, I would not put a deep carry pocket clip on this knife, because they intended, even Spyderco didn't want it to be a deep carry knife, right? You can't put this in a highly concealed place. Whereas something like, let's say the Para, right? This sitting in the pocket, there might be like just the rim sticking out of the scale. This thing, it has the lanyard tube behind the pocket clip. So even if you were to add a deep carry pocket clip, that's still gonna be sticking out. So either way, either that's gonna be sticking out or that's gonna be sticking out. So it is meant to be a high ride pocket clip. Why? Because it's a tactical folder, easy to access with the high ride experience, easy to get a grip on it, access that knife, pull it out quickly, get ready, into position, whatever you need it for. Cutting your cable ties, defending yourself, using it for whatever tasks you will in the military. But that is also what makes me think that, hey, this is more of a tactical folder and intended as such. They didn't want this thing to be concealable. Yeah, which is quite interesting, I have to say, that they didn't even give you that option. They were like, no, this is what it was made for, and you're going to use it for that, or you're not going to use it to conceal it. So it's quite interesting. Yes. Okay. Full solid stainless steel liners. We've got the little cutouts there to drop the weight. Nice lanyard tube as usual from Spyderco. It's quite a story getting that off when taking the knife apart on all of the Spydercos basically that have these lanyard tubes, but it's still a very nice touch. The tolerances are amazing. It basically looks as if the blade is 100% connected to the liners. They use phosphor bronze washers between the blade and the liners, so it runs on that. It is super smooth, it really is. However, this ball bearing lock, this is like an access style lock, but instead of an access bar, they use a ball bearing, which I think is a little bit more durable over long term, and maybe even a bit stronger. Got this casing here, and it's just a massive freaking tank of a lock, I have to say that. However, being such a massive knife, it's not like you can, you see there, I can't put it in the palm of my hand and then access the lock. You see, I have to sort of press the pocket clip into my hand, then access the lock if I'm going to close it or open it. I can't press the butt of the knife into my hand and then try and access that lock because it's too large. So I'm not going to say it's a design flaw, but it's definitely not the easiest lock to access. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's a super durable lock. It's fantastic for its purposes, but it's not a fidgety lock. Yeah, I'm just going to say that. So yeah, you can obviously upgrade this knife as well. You can use some titanium bits for the lock. You can use titanium hardware, get other scales, whatever you want. Usually Spyderco knives are very customizable. The Para 3 being such a popular knife, the PM2 and the Delica are all super highly customizable knives, right? I think the PM2 is probably taking the cake on that one, but the XL, I have seen some scales for it. The Manix 2, the standard Manix, is you know, it's going to be a little bit easier to customize and get scales for and get hardware for, but they are out there for the XL also. Right guys, further we've got our standard G10, not standard by any means, it's Spyderco G10, which is very nice on the hand, super grippy, doesn't feel cheap, it feels like good quality G10, and that's just what you get with Spyderco. With the Manix XL, you only have two mounting options. You've got the left or right hand side tip up carry, which is interesting because a lot of people actually argue that the best tactical position to carry your knife in is tip down, which I don't know if I agree with that, but a lot of people say that. So it's interesting that Spyderco making a super tactical knife that is meant to be for tactical purposes, even kind of forcing you to only use a high ride pocket clip in a sense, and then not giving you the ability to mount it in a tip down fashion. And I understand that it would be very difficult, especially with the locking mechanism, but that's just interesting, as opposed to something like the usual go-to where they just punch like, whew, I don't know, what's that, 12 different holes in the scales, which I hate. I really hate that. Makes it look a little bit unfinished. But whatever, that's just a nitpicky thing. Yeah, on something like aftermarket scales like these, which will be in another video where we are actually modding out our PM2, they only have on the right side tip up carry, so you have all those holes deleted, which is fantastic. Okay guys, that is the Manix XL overview. I'm excited to use this thing. I'm going to beat it up after I've resharpened it and test it out for you guys, and then give you guys a full review on this absolute monster of a blade.